Jane Austen, might have recognized its mixture of cruelty and mercy. The Austen of Emma, for instance, that satirist who describes the irritating Mrs. Elton's large bonnet and basket as her apparatus of happiness, would have seen exactly what Amos is doing here. To fall to the ground massively, slowly, is an act of labor that wins from the writer that cumbersome word, administration. And the cool Latinate tease of it is funny. But it also hints more tenderly at what will be needed of us, our administration, as we struggle to lift the almost dead weight up off the street. The entire drawling phrase ironically distances something that's unbearably painful and intimate. Or take as another example, another line from experience that I often think smilingly of. It's a sentence about traveling with Martin's friend Christopher Hitchens and how the two men had to stop regularly for, quote, the many powerful drinks and the huge uneaten meal without which the hitch could not long subsist. That's sort of B-grade Amos, not especially flashy by his standards. But note the way that powerfully drinking and hugely not eating comically balance and cancel each other out, and how the genius is all in that little word, long, the huge uneaten meal without which the hitch could not long subsist, with its absurd logical contradiction of Hitchens subsisting, no, needing to subsist on huge uneaten meals. On page after page of Amos's work, you find this kind of attention to the comic music, to the careful, sardonic orchestration, sounded and built up word by word, that constituted his brilliant style. Despite his vows and avowals, I'm not sure that Martin Amos ever sounded much like a Jewish American novelist who was almost born in Russia, Saul Bellow, or a Russian novelist who emigrated into his own estranged English, Vladimir Nabokov. He sounded like a funny English writer, very keen not to sound like his father, the comic novelist Kingsley Amis. And this was all the delight his readers needed or wanted. The writer who so persistently wrote about the moronic inferno of the modern pornography, urban dreck, America, the brutal state of the British nation, whose novels seem to abound in postmodern tricks, a novel, as we just heard, with a character named Martin Amis, a novel told backwards, walk-on parts for characters, wasn't really modern at all. Stylistically, he came cackling and chortling right out of the 18th century. In fact, the modern writer Amos most obviously resembles, I think, was quite far from the high pantheon of Bellow and Nabokov, though one admired by both Amos and Hitchens. That muscleless magician, that popular purveyor of timeless comic fertility and posh silliness, P.G. Wodehouse. The clues were littered all over Amos's work. His first major novel, Money, posed as an Englishman's wised-up attempt to do mid-1980s New York, seen as a hellish but alluring island of strip clubs, pornography, and simmering racial unease. But the New York of Money isn't really Tom Wolfe's painstakingly reported dystopia of the same era. It's an invented universe, a world stripped of reference and filled with in-jokes and mad wordplay. In Amos's novel, for instance, the city's hotels are all teasingly named after literary models: the Ashbury, the Bartleby, the Cymbeline. Wodehouse invented a magical alternative slang for ordinary objects, a kind of upper-class Martian estrangement. In his Jeeves and Wooster stories, the head becomes the onion, the lemon, the bean, the coconut. I was still massaging the coconut. A beard is fungus. I fiddled with the fungus. The face becomes the map. He had a dazed expression on the map, and so on. In Money, Amos gives words their sillier siblings too. An apartment becomes a sock. Quote, I peer through the spectral, polluted, nicotine-sodden windows of my sock. Hair becomes a rug. His hair was that special mad yellow, like an omelette, a rug omelette. A bachelor pad, or bachelor sock indeed, smells of batch, and so on. Amos wrote a great deal about the decay of the body, about